Good evening. Good evening. Hi, my name is Mia Bronco. For those of you I have not had the opportunity to meet yet, I'm the education director here at the Waldo Theatre, and it is my great pleasure to welcome you to our third annual community storytelling program. Yeah, give that a round of applause. Thank you. The theme this year is Second Chances, and this performance is the culmination of a 3-part workshop series we started back in April. In this series, we had community members come with curiosity and interest, and some with an idea for a true story that they would like to tell. In this series, we offer this program for free, in the same way that we offer this performance as a pay-what-you-can event. It is very important to us that this is an accessible opportunity. If you are able to donate anything tonight, that goes right back into our ability to offer programs like these in the future. So we thank you in advance. I would also like to take this opportunity to highlight my co-lead teacher for the workshop series, the wonderful, the thoughtful, the very talented Michael Amico. He's sitting at the light board there. Thank you, Michael. Stories are a cross-cultural tradition as old as humanity itself. We use stories to communicate memories, knowledge, to make sense of our experiences, and most importantly, to connect. We all have stories to tell, and we all have stories that we need to hear. So tonight, we invite you to sit back, relax, and listen. And next year, we invite you to join us up here on stage and tell a story yourself. Thank you very much.
Please welcome to the stage, Oren Robinson.
In music school, we had recital class, where each student had to perform every semester whatever they were working on. My first recital class, I found out I'd developed a crippling stage fright that manifested itself as a shaking of my leg. Once it got so bad, I shook my sandal and hit someone in the front row. Over the years, I got better at it, and it still shook a little bit, but it was mostly hidden, and it sort of showed up as a shimmering vibrato. Now, my last recital class, I was going to do John Dowland's Lacrimé and Puccini's Vecchiezza Mara from La Bohème. And a friend stopped and he said his fiddle teacher was going to let him do Devil Went Down to Georgia, and he wanted me to sing. Of course, I said yes. So I went and printed off the lyrics and memorized. We had good rehearsals. We had a great dress rehearsal, which may have been a problem. And the morning of recital class came. Now, recital class was split into 2 parts. The first part was for soloists, like violins or trombones or throats. The second part's for ensembles, like string quartets or jazz combos. And it was done by seniority, so I was up last for the first part, and we were up last for the second part. So I waited my turn, and I walked out with my accompanist, and I sang the Dowland. Flow, my tears, fall from your springs. And I sang the Puccini. Vecchiezza Mara sent'io resto al pianto e scendei, re sacro monter devi, le mi grazie ricevi. They gave me a standing ovation, so you got some work to do. Anyway, I had a standing ovation. I had 2 callbacks. It was great. I was on cloud 9. I done did good. So I went backstage, and I looked over my Devil Went Down to Georgia lyrics one more time and waited our turn. We were up. The band went out to moderate applause. The fiddle player went out, much more applause. I went out, way more applause. And we started in. The band went boom, boom, boom. Bring. Devil went down Georgia. He was looking for a soul to steal. He was way behind, and in my mind, completely emptied of all the lyrics. They were gone. Empty. I looked back at the fiddle player, shrugged, he shrugged back at me, and boom, boom, boom. Bring. Devil went down Georgia. He was looking for a soul to steal. He was way behind, and then didn't my mind empty at the same pot. It was horrifying. I was very worried. Luckily, the stage manager was privy to what was happening and brought me out the lyrics, and I had just enough time to look at the title when boom, boom, boom. Bring. Devil went down to Georgia. He was looking for a soul to steal. He was in a bind because he was way behind and he was looking to make a deal. And then every single one of those words came out of my mouth really, really nicely, all the way through. Didn't even look at the lyrics. Another standing ovation. Everybody was elated inside. I thought I was over. I was never going to perform again. A throat that can't remember lyrics? How horrifying. So as soon as I could, I tried to find a little hidey hole, but some friends grabbed me and brought me out for some drinks. Good idea. And we talked about mistakes. And over time, I realized that I wasn't finished. Everything was going to be okay. People were going to still want to play music with me, and they did. See, most of us were also music ed majors, and we already understood that mistakes are part of the learning process, and we're all going to make them. We all have made them before, and that's all. Mistakes are inherent in learning. Oh, and by the way, I don't really get stage fright, certainly not a shaking leg anymore. I still have the shimmering vibrato, though. See, mistakes are inherent in the learning are part of the school district I work for now's mission statement. And it's really something I drive home to my students. I teach general music, band, chorus, and drama to about 400 K through 8 kids in 2 different schools. And these kids really need help on making mistakes. They see in their social media landscape great successes, experts, people who can do things so well, and they see a lot of absolute failures. They don't see the mistakes, the work, all the time, the takes that it takes to become an expert. And when I see the failures, everybody just laughs. So who'd want to risk making mistakes by trying something new? Occasionally, I do get some people who are able to fight through this. I've got a couple of ringers who wanted to learn Just the Two of Us by Bill Withers and Grover Washington Jr. on piano and bass. And I was really reluctant to let them do it, but not because they couldn't handle the music. They had that fine. I had a personal problem with this song. It was the last song that I sang to my ex-wife before she left. So, years before, I had another student who was learning this on a ukulele, and I learned it with him. We had a great time playing it. It was super fun, and I had this bright idea to play it for my wife when she came home from a cello tour. So he came in, and I went and grabbed a ukulele that I just finished reconditioning, brand new saddle, new strings. I tightened up the body. It looked great. I didn't change the tuners, which in hindsight was a mistake. And I sang the song to her. Just the two of us. We can make it if we try. Just the two of us, you and I. There was no standing ovation. She didn't really care for it that much. Now, granted, the ukulele was considerably out of tune by the end of the song. And this was the woman who threatened to throw a cast iron frying pan at me when I was trying to tune a Hungarian cymbalum with a broken soundboard unsuccessfully. See, she has perfect pitch, which means named notes have a specific frequency. A is always 440. If it varies one way or the other, it's just wrong. It actually hurts her. I have relative pitch, which means I hear an A440 or an A436 or an A420 for all I care, and I can sing whatever, sometimes trending a little flat. And it was interesting because it was really part of a discussion, an argument that we kept on having that could be thought of as a classical versus a folk mentality. In reductionist terms, a classical mentality is fixed, precise, exact, traditional, doesn't vary, and there's lots of wrong ways to do it. And the folk mentality, we wiggle our fingers around and hope. And this was part of the whole of our marriage, whether we were baking or brewing or building. She wanted to follow the recipe. She wanted to follow what was done before. I wanted to experiment, have fun, throw spaghetti at the wall. And there wasn't a lot of forgiveness in our marriage. I found that out later when I asked, as we were separating, what happened? What did I do? And she said, lots of little things. And then over the course of our separation, I learned what those things were. I had no idea. I had no idea. The last thing she said after we signed the divorce papers was, and there is a right way to do things. That hurt a bit. Though through self-reflection, a lot of time, considerable amount of therapy, I learned that she was probably right. She just missed half the statement. There is a right way to do things for different people at different times. And we learn those things through trial, mistakes, and we learn to forgive ourselves. And we learn to accept where we are and where other people are in their own journey to find out their specific truth. Now back to my kids. I love my students, some more than others. And I'm extremely happy to not have to see them for the next 75 days. So of course I had to recheck this song, and I was like, yeah, let's do it. And we just performed it actually last night at their promotion ceremony, complete with a few mistakes, some by me. Because I learned that forgiveness and acceptance are acts of love. Mistakes are inherent in learning. And I know now that I need to seek things that I did in the marriage and things that I did before the marriage that I've stopped doing because of the memories attached, and forgive those memories, accept them for what they were, and know that mistakes are inherent in learning. And forgiveness and acceptance are acts of love, even for yourself. Thank you.
Please welcome to the stage, Kerry, Hadley.
I don't know about you, but I told Oren he really should be singing at the Metropolitan Opera. What is he doing? Go get the mic. I'm going to get the mic in 1 minute. I got to set up my cards here. I'm playing a little game of cards. Here we go. Here it comes. Hello. Finding home. We loved our dad. Growing up, he was our rock, our provider, our inspiration, our everything. He was the dynamic center of a very large, fun, crazy Italian-Irish Catholic family, filled with brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, cousins, grandparents, neighbors, and community. In Revere, Massachusetts, he was a leader in many organizations, including Commodore of our yacht club. Our names in Revere seem to be inscribed everywhere. Each sibling's name was on the stern at one point in time of the starboats he loved to sail and race. Our last name, Trenvalia, was inscribed on large marble altar stones in our stately family church, along with other names like Cavatorta and Bessalacqua, Campanoli. They gave such a sense of place and connection. We were so proud of all of this that we would bring visiting friends and family to the church and the club and show these things off like they were tourist sites. My Uncle Mel loved to describe my dad as a prince of a man, even though he knew this impatient Italian side of him that could reel off a string of swears at a moment's notice. Mel loved to tell the story of little blonde, towhead Kerry in the back of our Lincoln Continental in my fancy church dress, white gloves, black patent leather shoes, yelling out, dad style, "Jesus Christ, who stole my goddamn Tootsie Roll?" Then Dad did something terrible and shocking. He died unexpectedly in the car with us on I-95, a massive heart attack. I can't even describe how traumatized we were. Our whole universe had just vanished, and the world was still continuing. My poor mom did her best. We found out also that we were much poorer. He was our hero who we thought would live forever, and he must have agreed because he hadn't carried life insurance. She went back to work and tried to hold things together. She moved, as soon as I left for college, she moved out west for a while to help out her brother. She eventually moved back east, but to small towns in New Hampshire and Maine, and rented cramped apartments. Visits home just were so out of balance, and unfamiliar places, and bereft of our beloved family. My Italian aunt encouraged me to spend a semester studying in Italy. Boy, was I glad I did. I had the most amazing experiences. I got to study film with Fellini. I went and met my Italian relatives that were still left in the a hill town outside of Naples. I was happy again. I felt I'd found myself. I opted to extend my semester, I was enjoying Italy so much, with an additional homestay with a family named Giardeschi. Mom Anita, Dad Babbo, and adult son, Giampiero. They lived in a small town named Badia of Pistoia, surrounded by fields of Chianti, small plants they grew and sold as their livelihood. Even though it was many years ago, that period of time in Italy still felt like stepping way back in time. I spent my days helping a bit in the fields, but mostly helping Anita with her chickens and bunnies, and fishing in the river behind the house for frogs that we ate at their dinner table. Anita at first seemed stern and focused to me. She's very stocky. But as I grew to know her, she was so full of fun and loved to laugh and joke. In fact, my favorite memories of then are of Anita. Anita and I riding their old bikes across their fields to the local groceria, holding hands, going side by side, holding hands on our handlebar on the other side, just laughing our heads off. Also, Anita, didn't go in the car very often. When she did go on a voyage in the Machina, she would clutch her rosary beads to her chest, pray for a safe voyage, and make the sign of the cross in front of any home we passed with the Madonna in front. And in that town, every single house had a Madonna in front. Giampiero and I began a romance. He was handsome like my dad. He had the same deep voice and lively personality. He was also very religious, and I was sure he just would want to have 10 kids. He worked in the fields and made very clear to me that he would never leave the farm. He would always stay there. I began to anticipate his return from the fields each day. He would come back to wash up in the outdoor sink, the sun setting low, a rose arbor overhead, He's boisterously singing and laughing in a white tank top, tanned, rugged. We had many talks. Could we ever make this work? How would this work? My mom and my family came to visit at the end of the semester to meet the Jarodeskis and travel. Please, Mom, you gotta tell me this is totally nuts, right? Oh, no, she loved him. She thought it was great. I returned home to finish my degree and try to clear my head and get some perspective. The amazing love letters that followed. If I pity anyone who hasn't had a love letter like these. Sorry. But what they did was cause me anxiety. I thought, oh no, oh no, oh no, is this right, is this right, is this right? Finally, I realized the only way he'd see and understand our differences was to visit the US. I had come to the recognition that a long-term relationship most likely was not going to work. 3 months later, John Pierre arrived. I was determined to have an enjoyable visit, even though we had such terrible, difficult talks to have. I have to be honest, I don't even remember the talk. And I've kept journals, and I didn't write about the talk. I wiped it completely from my memory. Years later, my older brother and his partner were vacationing in Siena, and they invited me to join. I did, and decided I would return to visit Badia. I had been so focused on this fancy New York City career and job I was so excited about that I'd lost touch with them. So I was nervous and very excited. My hesitant knock at their door was answered by a friendly-looking woman in a house dress. I learned she was from the neighborhood and married to John Piero. They didn't have 10 kids. One adopted son from Africa who was riding his bike in their courtyard. Anita had died. My visit with her was at her gravesite. I was so very touched when Dad, Babo, said to me, you know, we have had many, many students over so many years, and not one has ever returned to visit but you. Looking around, I was at John Pierre and his family. I was grateful for the life that shared with me, and I was happy for John Piero. He had not only found, but kept his home. I returned to New York City and met and married a gentle, kind man that I met at the publishing house where we both worked. We slowly made our way north till we wound up here in Maine in a farmhouse by the sea near my mom and my uncles. Ironically, I kept chickens and bunnies while our 2 boys were young, at least. And I spent gobs of time. I'm obsessed with our huge gardens and apple orchards. It's my place of peace and beauty. Over time, Mom is gone, my uncles are gone, our boys are grown up, married, and moved away, and starting to create beautiful lives of their own. I see another wrenching decision looming for finding home. But for a good spell of time, I had been able to embrace what I'd learned from my family and the Jarodeskis, a home that felt just about pretty much just right. Tutto a posto, as the Italian saying goes. Everything in its place. Tutto a posto. I have one more thing. I have a coda that I added just yesterday because, I get more emotional for them, because I learned yesterday that a wonderful Brazilian family that we'd come to know and here in the Midcoast had just been deported. As emotional as this story of home is for me, I had agency. I had choice. I grieve for those who have fled violence, worked hard, are following our rules to obtain their citizenship, and still being ripped away from their homes. We are all immigrants. Thank you.
Please welcome to the stage Alexandra Petrovits.
All I wanted was a horse. If I had a horse, I knew my life would be perfect. It was 1966, and I was 11 years old. One April day, my dad announced, Mr. Silva had a horse we might want to look at. So off we went. Mr. Silva ushered us into a small shed. It smelt of musty hay, manure, and ammonia. A soft, deep knicker cut through the dark. My dad pointed the flashlight at ribs, hip bones, and a dirty coat. Tied on a short rope, the horse strained to turn and look at us. It nickered again, a low questioning sound as if asking, "Who are you and what do you want?" "Oh," said my mom, "what a beautiful face. I think we should call her Lovey." She did have a beautiful face, wide forehead and gentle eyes. I loved her immediately. Mr. Silva said Lovey had come in on a train, a boxcar from Wyoming. She was a Mustang, a plains horse, wild, feral, broke to halter, but not to ride, likely destined for slaughter. How she ended up on Cape Cod, he didn't know. My dad gave him $25. The next day at her new home, sunlight told the truth. Emaciated and peppered with sores, Lovey's condition was far worse than I had ever imagined. I took her by the lead rope, and although she followed, she shied from the touch of my hand. That night we had a thunderstorm. The next morning she was gone. My dad called the sheriff, and APB went out for a runaway wild horse, and I went to school. Around 10 o'clock, the sheriff pulled me out of class. "We found your horse," he said. "Let's go." I jumped into the cruiser, and off we went. Lovey had run to the Cape Cod Canal, about a 30-minute drive. When we got there, she was tied to a chain link fence. "You'll have to ride her," said the sheriff. It didn't cross my mind that she wasn't broke to ride, and there was no bridle, just a halter and rope. The sheriff gave me a leg up. As I settled onto her bony back, she coiled intense, and I grasped a tuft of mane, expecting her to buck or rear, but nothing happened. "We'll follow you," said the sheriff. It took about 6 hours. The cruiser followed all the way. The next few months were about healing. Lovey gradually put on weight and came around to accepting her new life. Too soon to ride, we went for walks in cranberry bogs to ponds and to the sea. Eventually, we started taking lessons. A neighbor with beautiful horses and a wall full of ribbons offered to teach us. Together, Lovey and I learned to walk, jog, trot, lope, canter, back up, move forward, turn, do circles, figure eights, and lead changes. I learned about leg pressure and collection. Early on, there were a few bucks and rears and some falls. One day, Lovey walked over to me and dropped her nose to the ground. She stood quietly, her warm breath puffing gently. I believed she was saying, "I trust you." From then on, Lovey was family and family pet. My dad gave her treats of Wonder Bread, and taught her to lift her leg for a treat, just as you would for a dog. She would roam free in the yard. She liked the water. She liked swimming. My siblings and I used Lovey like a raft, jumping off her back into the water, climbing back on, and then to do it again. Not far from us was a stable held horse shows one Saturday a month from spring to fall. I got into the routine, waking up early, saddling Lovey, and riding to the show. I was content to linger there the whole day, engrossed in a world of elegant horses and their fortunate riders. Some of the girls I knew from school, I had no expectation of showing Lovey, much as I loved her compared to the show horses. My Mustang looked scrappy, long from stem to stern, deep chest, thick legs, narrow hindquarters, a little misshapen. Not show material. For now, I studied the horses and their riders from the outside rail. But as I turned the corner from 15 to 16, I started dreaming about what it would be like to have a horse I could show. It took a few months scanning newspapers and visiting barns and stables, and finally I found Red Chestnut, AKA Charlie, a stunning copper-colored gelding from off Cape over the bridge. Charlie's rider, headed for college, said Charlie had done well in shows, and so for $500, I got the horse, his bridle, and a saddle. Pleasant and polite, Charlie was plug and play, a dream ride, smooth gaits, responsive, and the best of all, Lovey and Charlie became great pals. And so, with my bright, shiny new horse and the horse show my singular focus, I embarked on a strict training regime. My dad made me a small riding ring, my neighbor helped me with lessons, and my sister sewed me a show outfit. Lovey, meanwhile, enjoyed her new life as a pasture ornament. Often she stood on the outside of the fence and watched, and she was also putting on some weight. "Are you going to ride Lovey again?" my mom asked. "I will," I said, "but right now I have the show." I resented her question. Show day arrived. I woke up early, excited and confident that Charlie and I were ready. Just as we were about to leave, Lovey nickered. "Why not take her along?" suggested my dad. I did feel some remorse leaving her behind. It wasn't that I discarded her for Charlie. I simply wanted to show. I saddled up Lovey and led Charlie. On our way, I pictured the classes I'd entered: Western equitation, where the rider is judged; Western pleasure, where the horse is judged; Western trail, where the horse and rider are judged; and 2 game classes, egg and spoon. If the egg falls off the spoon, you're out. And flag race, a timed event where the horse races around the ring and the rider picks up and puts down flags in little buckets really close to the ground. When we got to the showgrounds, the air was charged with horse whinnies and human chatter. Lovey remained her stoic self, while Charlie displayed curiosity, pride, and confidence. His ears perked. He pranced. Some heads turned. I puffed a little. This was going to be the best day of my life. Suddenly, my left arm, which held Charlie's lead rope, was wrenched back. Charlie had come to a full stop. Lovey wheeled around. I jumped off. Charlie began to paw the ground and snort. He let out an ear-piercing shriek and started backing up in a tight circle. I held on to the lead rope, keeping it loose and trying to stay calm. My dad ran over. "What's going on?" Charlie then started to rear and buck. He crumpled to his knees, rolled over and got up. He sat on the front of a hood of a car and then catapulted off. He anxiously scanned the ground and let go with a volley of squeals, snorts, whinnies, groans, shrieks, and earth-shattering, if you've ever heard them, horse roars. This was not going to work. "I'm taking him home," my dad said. "Stay here, I'll be back." My dad led Charlie away, and Charlie followed obediently. I ran to Lovey. She stood quietly off to the side, her reins on the ground. My throat tightened. I pressed my face into her neck and sobbed. Her soft muzzle gently nudged me. I just wanted to go home. After a while, I wiped my tears, looked up, and saw an older man watching us about 10 feet away. He wore a straw cowboy hat with a feather in it and a blue checkered shirt. He approached us and stopped. He put his hands on his hips, nodded with approval. He pointed at Lovey and said, "You see that there horse, Missy? Now that's a real horse." He tipped his hat and walked away, disappearing into the throng of horses and riders. I didn't know what to make of it. I just wished my dad would hurry back. I went over to the registration table to scratch my entry. Right then, for reasons unbeknown, I decided to ride Lovey in the show. Good thing that I'd actually given her a bath the day before. And so, Lovey and I entered the show. And here's how we did. Western equitation, first place. Western pleasure, first place. Western trail, first place. Egg and spoon, second. Flag race, second. My parents showed up after Western pleasure. My dad said he wasn't surprised and slipped her a piece of Wonder Bread. After the last class, the riders waited while the day's points were counted and the championship to be announced. While we waited, I kissed and hugged Lovey and thanked her. I cried new tears, recognizing that this once wild horse, so far from her Wyoming plains, had just done something remarkable and mysterious. I was humbled. The riders were asked to come back into the ring. Lovey and I stood side by side in a row alongside our competitors, girls I had been watching from the outside rails since I was 12. The reserve champion went to a sophomore and her handsome black horse. When the applause stopped, the champion was announced. And folks, the championship goes to Lexi Petrovits on Lovey. Let's give them a big hand. The judge walked over, fixed the red, blue, and gold ribbon on Lovey's bridle, handed me the trophy, and said, "Congratulations to you both." I don't know how it was that we won. Maybe the mystery cowboy was our fairy god cowboy, and he made it happen. I do remember, from the moment we first entered the ring, a great calm set over me. I imagined how we should be, and Lovey understood.
Please welcome Jade Nelson.
It begins here. It was January 21st, 2020. I was standing in the house with the orange couch and cement floors, watching my husband, my partner, my person of 15 years, pack boxes and slide them into the corner of the converted garage. I stood there in silence, engulfed in sadness, thinking, what do I want? I knew I wanted to survive this without bitterness. I wanted to sit across from him one day and hear about his life. I wanted to love him, not as my husband, but as a lifelong friend. I promised myself, no matter how long it took, I would find my way there. I heard the last box click shut, and he stood up, walking towards me with his hand out, and in his palm was one of his pocket knives. He said, "Keep this, you might need it." I took it. We hugged, and as I left for the gym, I could hear our mantra ringing in my ears. We just want happiness for each other. When I returned, he was gone, and I stood there with our dogs beside me, staring at those neatly stacked boxes that would come to haunt me for the next year and a half. I struggled to find my footing, to figure out my next steps. And then the pandemic came crashing in, and I was left to sit with my grief, my frustrations, my fears, and my anger. To distract my overactive mind, I went on long walks and road trips with the dogs. The pocket knife always with me. Each time I returned, I felt crushed by the house and overwhelmed with the responsibilities. I wanted to burn it to the ground. Instead, I began donating, throwing away, and selling anything I could get my hands on. I took minimalism to a whole new level. Eventually, one of the dogs went to live with my soon-to-be ex. The house sold, and I packed up what was left of my life, and I put Texas in the rearview mirror. I arrived in Maine, crashing at my mom's. I started my summer job. The divorce finalized. I settled into my solitude. The pocket knife on my hip all summer long, cutting down endless Amazon boxes, doing what needed to be done. And then one fall, I was planning a trip to go hiking. And I was looking everywhere for the pocket knife, and I couldn't find it. I ended up sitting in the driveway, sobbing. My dog watching me from the car. I ended up calling my sister, and to this day, I can't tell you what she said to me, but I went on that trip. I hiked over 20 miles. I met some very interesting people and ate really good food. On the way back, I realized I hadn't thought of him the whole time. This was the first time it had ever happened. I was healing. I was finding my way. When I got back, I found the pocket knife in the last pair of jeans I wore, right where I left it. A year later, it went missing again. 5 whole days, and I had a sinking feeling it was really gone this time. And I was going to meet my boss for lunch. They showed up with their hand out, and in their palm was my pocket knife a little scratched up with a spot of rust, still getting by, just like me. He texted, said, "I'm coming to town, want to meet up?" We had talked off and on over the years, but we hadn't seen each other in quite a few. The day arrived that we were to get together. I was nervous and unsure. We sat across from each other in a hotel lobby, and we told each other about our lives. The pocket knife was with me the whole time, in my jacket pocket, right over my heart. I left feeling lighter and freer that day. That fall, I moved into a place of my own. The pocket knife in the car, always there if I needed it. That next summer, the 4th summer in Maine, I moved into a place on a hill that I now call home. My life was full. I had a community of friends, neighbors, colleagues, my family, and plenty of moments of joy. The pocket knife was dull, but it was mine, always there when I needed it. One spring, an Amazon box arrived, and I pulled out my pocket knife, cut the box open, my new seat covers. I put them on. The next morning, I was rushing out the door to go teach a yoga class. I jumped in the car and went down the hill, turned the corner, and I could hear this clattering across the roof of my car. Yep, you guessed it. I realized I had forgotten my pocket knife on the roof of my car. I was late. I took a deep breath and I said, "It's okay," and I kept driving. After class, I went back. There it was, on the side of the road, blade open. I laughed, picked it up, gently closed it, and placed it back in the car. The pocket knife and I, we have a deep understanding. Life is sharp. Sometimes you lose yourself, and sometimes you find your way back. We are headed into our 5th summer now. The blade is a bit sharper, and it holds an engraving, an infinity sign, and the words, "second chances," because I believe our lives are full of them. Thank you.
Please welcome Heather Stewart.
Good evening. Thank you for being here. So a little bit about me. I've suffered from debilitating stage fright, shyness, fear, anxiety, fear of judgment, super fun stuff for a while. I've been pretty quiet, but I've been given a second chance, so this is me trying to get over myself, and I am going to, thank you. I'm going to offer up some lyrical prose. So here goes. Put that right there. I'm little Kgnowmie, who don't make a peep. I'm a curious being kept in a keep. Explaining oneself after ego gigantic, blue supernova in life, all a frantic. I can't make up my mind, it keeps falling apart. I'm the most unstable form of centrifugal art, where I hold it together and then let it all loose, shouting H-bombs away, and it's rather profuse. My knowledge and downloads here take it all. Akashic Records, Apostle Paul, Upanishads, and the Gita, perfect sense for my tranquilla. I've been lying in wait in Nautilus shell, chambering higher than every hell, ever faster while slowing down, playing game for family crown. The competition is still not drawn, boys be fighting sister mom. Yet the winning prize to end the race is peace and love in ordered place. My spiritual master is now making sense as time and space collapsed, condensed. I surrendered to the Mother Divine. Creation's central source is thine. Conquer death beyond all fear, path of joy, corruption clear. Wisdom ages passing through, center star of Buddha you. In my head, I know it all. I'm an ego monster about to fall, who can't maintain immortality, playing life at 2 or 3. Must go solo down to 1, escaping black holes, danger fun. Chosen, saved, reborn, reset. It's kind of like Total Recall for this vet, whose Mars and Venus, in the end, blew their union in pretend, all made up a show to see from higher up divinity, who are watching down on my daftest self, getting married on 12-12-12, of never-ending storyline, my ex Shiva dressed in pantomime. No, I didn't know these glorious gods when they were busy at their jods. That's a word from universe, a secret place free of curse. Made by a being I call H, now surrendered. So please come and take these elements from my ego death at your leisure. I won't hold breath. So much to share post-delusion. I was a nightmare in conclusion, who was well-meaning but missing mark. I'm talking Antony, my twin flame narc. I leave bits and pieces for you to stitch. My job's ideas and then to pitch. See what I craft confined in mind sets the stage for world of blind. I've built a house just to watch it burn. Give sacrifice of all I learned. For attachment clung to sweetest soul who can't let go of full control. Whose self was saying, but I'm the best. My plan's perfect, screw the rest. Yeah, did not end well, no surprise. Me desperately begging for new demise. Calling out to unseen love, please rethink eternal shove. I'm a grateful goose, without a clue, devise new plan for what I can do. Turn it comedic, for I'm a pet who writes about erasing debt. I'll do whatever for release. Imagine I'm a Google of geese who lays countless eggs of solid gold. I'll tell the greatest story ever told. I'll earn my keep, for I have taken your love for granted and then forsaken. I'll be on karmic wheel with me broken spoke, double meanings fasten joke. Oh, I'm divine, quite damn too, for owning it all is what I do. The moves I make iconoclastic. I'm a singularity wholly spastic. Overwhelmed with much to say, sharing now relieves my day. I will open up and shed my skin and try to let Miss Easy in. An energy that makes you feel frumpled dingbat banana peel. Nonsense talking when letting go will rise me higher in ascension show. I put it out there, words and thought, to see reaction, what you got. See, taking risk for shyest clam is exposing who I am. And if that gets too hot and I'll retreat, I will go down and take a seat and crawl back in my little shell and watch TLC dimensions tell storied sides of our shattered mind, of using avatars of humans blind on all screens, all unawares where they are in Earth's despairs. But from where I stand, they are me, connected through infinity. I've been through so many roles and see myself in many souls. I do not judge, I learn and weep, sometimes shrink, but often leap. You never know how the wind will blow when living in the here now flow. My shame has pushed me to this edge. I can live or die. What shall I pledge? To show my face despite aching lump, to find some courage for dark side jump into the waters with circling sharks who have my daughters, my sacred sparks, whose separation took me down, thought I had it all, but lost my crown. I died, no hope for a bright tomorrow. Spent years drowning in lonesome sorrow. 'Cause missing my girls made my rivers rise, but I can now transmute and dam my eyes, creating pristine tears at a premium price from angel ducks of this human nice. So complicated, many perspectives, but no one's to blame, we were all defectives. My kids took the hit, and I just need to say, I am so sorry and have gone a new way. I love you much more than you'll ever know. I was defeated, had to take blow. We've been detached by forces primordial who needed a batch of mother corporeal. We'll leave that whale tale for another time and focus back on my collection crime. In short, I'm hiding, don't you know, my perfect script for an Earthling show. A wallflower mum afraid of judgment, dreading peer-reviewed downfall fudgment. Stuffing in headlines I'd rather shout out, like mine being used for AI clout. Ugh. But no one will hear Lil Know Me, nor love, nor know, nor land, nor sea, if I keep to myself my gems and pearls. So I give to you now as brain unfurls. Will you be my sounding board, a litmus test for all I hoard? I'm very sorry that it's taken so long to join your lovely human throng. My coming out in baby steps is made possible by your angelic reps. I've written so much that no one has seen, scared sharing my thoughts would break up this dream in which we are trapped as singular cells, building bodies of shiny shells, looking for outs rather than ins, energetic entangles of blessings and sins, a rubical cube of epic proportions, a monstrous mirror of twisted distortions. In the hardest test ever to shatter apart, this glass eye of the ceiling to open our heart. I believe only way to not have a role is just to live as a no one, just a feeler of soul, observing and wait for the miracle day. The tides have all turned, and I can now say, my name is Love, call me by no other. You know me as Ma, Mum, or the mother. But where is the father? Perhaps I've consumed a thought I imagine as destiny loomed, tapestry weaving with words in a ramble that add up to nothing in a zero-sum scramble, losing my thought in a purpose complex on a mission to order all of my flex. Did anyone follow all the words I have said from overthinking nonlinear head? No, I think not. And that makes my point. I shall turn about face to more simplified joint. Letting go of illusions grander than mine takes the patience of saints one at a time. Being called to the center over and over. In a game I have dubbed Quantum Red Rover, I'm learning the rules by invisible guides who are revealing their source where everything hides. A role that's been played by all of us here till sucked into the vortex we all know as fear, that keeps us bound heavy as covered up light, control and perfection undermining our right. So stage left, we will go back into the void, made up of the elements of our matters destroyed. There's air and ether, senses and force, made up by no one, of course. There'll be no numbers, there'll be no form, no letters or thoughts, blank is the norm. To get here requires a very long time, an equation of lose, come together in prime. Divide all eternity, add every infinity, subtract all the mass, and voila, your divinity, who's aware that to be, you can't be described. Becoming nobody is how you will hide. Forms are dismantled till you become zero. You'll expand thin as universe hero, who is null, nada, no one and nowhere. You won't give a blank and you won't have a care. You'll be neutrally balanced, invisible stuff, taking no orders, just living in buff. A transparent enigma, a universe mirror, breaking itself so it can see clearer. Feeling emotions of present and past. Well, that is, folks, how I plan to last. Now, I'm letting go of my shy and my shame and loving it all, including the pain. No more struggles, no more vice. Just sit with the moment. Wouldn't that be nice? Expecting no nothing, just take as it comes, humbled and grateful as everything sums. No more attachments, just giving to live. No more taking, just living to give. Feeling this way and that with no preference to be anything other than little, no, me. That's it. Thank you. Thank you.
And now we'll take a short intermission. Thank you very much. Please welcome to the stage, Jeff Mullin.
I call the story Kismet. I moved to Maine when my fiance dumped me. My grandparents had a small camp on a pond outside of Bangor, and I could stay there rent-free for a few months. And I thought it'd be a good place to get back on my feet and, who knows, maybe meet someone new at the end of a dirt road in the backwoods of Maine. 5 years and 3 crappy apartments later, I was back living at the camp. Things were going great. I'd been on 2 dates in the 5 years. One was to the movies with a coworker, but it still counts. I'm gonna count it. I was not the kind of guy who would go to a bar or a club to try to meet someone. I knew if I did, I would just sit in the corner and not talk to anyone. Do something on a computer, though, that I could do. So I thought I'd give online dating a try. Nowadays, it doesn't seem strange, but this was 1999. Most of the dating sites that you've heard of didn't even exist back then. You've Got Mail had just come out, so AOL had started a site where you could create a profile, no pictures involved, and you could connect with others that had also created a profile. I started chatting with a woman in Portland, not really sure where it would go, but I would check way too often to see if I had a reply, and I would eagerly await the next message. I wasn't sure we'd ever meet in person, though. Being 2 hours apart, I thought it would take a lot of planning and commitment to follow through. I thought it would take something special for us to want to take that next step. We were chatting about college and traveling and life in general. She'd lived in Maine her whole life. My dad was in the Navy, so we moved a lot, but it was mostly New England. She said she'd spent one summer with her college roommate and her family in Connecticut, and I'd graduated high school in Connecticut, so I asked her where, and she said Woodstock. Okay, that doesn't mean anything to you, but I almost did a spit take when I read that. That's the town my parents still lived in and where I'd gone to school. It is not a big town. It's known for having more cows than people. I thought there was a good chance that I, or more likely my parents, might even know the family. And when she told me the name of her college roommate, I knew that something special had happened and I was going to need to meet her. Her college roommate was the younger sister of the boy I was best friends with in 6th grade. Yeah. I probably even met the roommate, but I was an 11-year-old boy at the time and I would have paid no attention to younger sisters, so I can't be sure. Call it fate or destiny, but I knew that this small world coincidence was the universe telling me that I had to meet this woman. I agonized about it for days. I really enjoyed messaging her, and I didn't want to mess that up, but that's what I always did. I'd rationalize and overthink again and again. I'd equivocate so much I'd end up in the friend zone every time. Being afraid to take a risk, I'd ended up alone and going nowhere. If I was ever going to try it had to be this time, right? When was I going to get a better sign? I decided to take the risk and see if she would meet in person. I sent the message right before going to bed because I knew if I did it earlier in the day, that's all I'd be thinking about. When I got up the next morning, there was no reply, but it was still early, I told myself. She probably hasn't seen it. When I got home from work, there was still no reply, and I started to think that maybe no reply really was a reply. I went to bed early because I didn't want to spend all night just staring at the screen. When I got up the next morning, there was a reply, but I couldn't open it. I got ready for work, and I puttered around until I just couldn't take it anymore, and I finally had to open it. And she said yes. Now, my usual mode of action is inaction. It's kept me out of trouble most of my life, but I've also missed out on a lot. The fact that I'd actually acted still had me a little astounded. But now I was going to have to live with the consequences of that action. We were going to meet in person. We'd been chatting for a few weeks, but it was still a blind date. I was very excited, but almost equally nervous. I got a lot of advice from the people I work with, whether I ask them or not. What to wear, what to bring, how to make a good first impression. I decided I'd bring a flower, but I don't want to bring a rose. That just seemed cliche. So I picked out an exotic, delicate flower instead. It was July, and it was very hot. I lived in Bangor. She lived in Portland. It was going to be a long drive in my little car with no air conditioning. I did not mind. We'd agreed to meet at the parking lot next to the USM gym in Portland. It's a smart move on her part. You never know who you're talking to online, so best not to have them show up at your house. Plus, it was right off the highway, so very convenient for me, too. I pulled in my little Ford Aspire. I think it was called that because it hoped to one day grow up to be a real car. Her Jetta was already there, so I pulled in and parked next to it. She got out to greet me, and she was wearing a cranberry short-sleeved shirt, khaki shorts, sandals, sunglasses. Her hair was pulled back in a ponytail, and when I saw her, my heart dropped. She was out of my league. It wasn't even close. Nothing to do but make the best of it. I got out to say hello, and I picked up the flower I'd brought, but the delicate exotic I'd picked out had not enjoyed the drive, and it was drooping. I should have waited till I got to Portland to get a flower, but I was too nervous to think clearly at that point. She'd already seen me pick it up, so I shrugged as I handed it to her and apologized for it not surviving the drive. And then she did something that gave me hope. She laughed. She took it smiling a genuine smile. Maybe we were going to have a nice visit anyway. We went to Fort Williams to walk along the coast and talk. We took her car. It had air conditioning. We took the path down to the shore and onto the rocks, looking up at the lighthouse, and she slipped on the wet rocks and ended up ankle deep in the water. And I did probably the smartest thing I've ever done in my life. I didn't laugh. I just offered her my hand and helped her back up onto dry land. We spent the afternoon at the park, and then we went to dinner. We talked the whole time. It felt so natural and comfortable talking to her. I felt more at ease than I'd ever hoped to be. After dinner, she drove me back to my car, but the day wasn't over yet. I'd passed the first test. We were going to go to Blockbuster and rent a movie to take back to her place to watch it. We talked late into the evening. I probably talked more that day than I had in the previous several years combined, but it never seemed strained or forced. I opened up to her and talked about things I had never planned to talk about with anyone. It just seemed right. But it was time to go. It was late, and I had a long drive. We lingered on her front step saying goodbye, and I did one of the dumbest things I've ever done in my life. I didn't kiss her. Damn my inaction. I kicked myself the entire drive back to Bangor, but at least it kept me awake. Oh, one more thing. On our second date, she kissed me before I had a chance to chicken out again. And I will always be grateful to my wife for making that first move and taking me off the hook. Thank you.
Please welcome to the stage Rick Ochberg.
Hi, folks. This story I want to tell you goes back more than 50 years. This would have been just a couple of years after Woodstock. My college roommate and I hitchhiked out to San Francisco. At that time, San Francisco, well, I guess a couple of years earlier, San Francisco had been the heart of the summer of love. And for some of us, it was Mecca. We didn't realize until we got there that the moment had passed, and there were now more heroin addicts than flower children in Haight-Ashbury. And we also didn't realize just how thoroughly some people really hated anybody who had long hair and a beard. But we found out. There was this one time we were hitchhiking in Bodega Bay, which is just up the coast. And we were at a gas station, and a couple of guys came out and threatened to shave our heads and slit our throats and throw us in the bay. Now, in the end, nothing bad happened. But as we started thinking about hitchhiking home, we were very, very worried. So we started back in Berkeley. Some guy picked us up, and as we were driving, we told him a little bit about our worries about hitchhiking across the center of the country. Somehow, we had decided that if we could just get to St. Louis, we would be all right. We would be back east. We'd be back on the other side, you know, the big arch, the gateway to the west. We'd be away from all the yahoos who were trying to kill us. And at that point, he said, well, how about I sell you this car? It'll get you to St. Louis. And he made us a pretty good offer. But we were not fools. We could see that the car was in pretty tough shape. So he took us to his mechanic, and the mechanic said, oh yeah, there's nothing wrong with this car. This car will get you to St. Louis. Don't worry about it. Now, there were two other issues. One was that after buying the car, we didn't have enough money left to buy gas to get us across the country. And the other problem was that we weren't sure we actually knew how to drive the car because it was a manual shift. But we had a plan. We thought we could drive up to Telegraph Avenue, Berkeley. At that time, you could find people, dozens of people, who were hitchhiking all over the country, any day on Telegraph Avenue. So all we had to do was go up there, find somebody who was heading east, and make him drive the car, and also throw in some money for gas. But unfortunately, by the time we got there, it was late in the day, and all the hitchhikers were gone. So we set off on our own across the continent, or at least the pre-St. Louis part of it, trusting to good fortune and the kindness of strangers. Well, as it turned out, the car did not make it to St. Louis. It got about 100 miles east of Berkeley, and it broke down completely. And somehow we managed to get it into a gas station. The guy there looked it over and said, forget about it. This car is shot. But he said, you know, it is worth $20 as junk. So we offered to sell it to him. And at that point, he said, well, okay, let's see the pink slip. Well, we didn't have a pink slip. I mean, who knew from pink slips? So he said, all right, here's what you do. You call up the police and you tell them you want to abandon the car. If it's abandoned, I can claim it as junk and I'll give you the $20. So that's what we did. And it was at this point that things had already been going downhill, and at this point so I remember I was up in the bathroom. I was doing something with my contact lenses when I got out. Jim was talking to a policeman, and the policeman said to Jim, is that your friend? Jim says, yes. And he says, I need you both to turn around, face the police car, put your hands behind your back. You're under arrest for stealing this car. Now, and I should tell you that, and then at that moment, 4 other police cars and 6 other policemen came roaring up onto the tarmac to secure the situation. Now, on the way to the police station, I tried to explain, and the cop was not buying it. He said, you are either the dumbest asshole I've ever met, or you're lying. Well, I wasn't going to take that lying down. So I thought, well, I'll show him. I'll show him my Harvard ID card. So I was trying to get my ID card out of my pocket, but it was hard because my hands were handcuffed behind my back. And after a while, he said, you know, if you don't stop wiggling around, I'm going to have to beat on you on your knees with my billy club. Now, he said this pleasantly enough. I think he was having a good time. I was upset But if I'm honest, I think I was more upset that he thought I was a fool than that he thought I was a criminal. Anyway, we got to the police station. They let us off to a cell. A little while later, they brought us some dinner. It was a Swiss steak, which we had to eat with spoons, because I think they were worried that we might commit suicide by stabbing ourselves with our forks. I have only eaten Swiss steak on one other occasion. That was when I was in the hospital overnight waiting for heart surgery. And I got to tell you, I'm not looking forward to the next time. Eventually they decided that we probably hadn't stolen the car after all. They drove us back to the highway. It was very late at night. And that was that. Route 80 stretched off to the right, 3,000 miles to Cambridge, though, of course, only 2,000 to St. Louis. And there we were. Along around dawn, some guy, another driver, stopped for us to give us a ride, an enormously fat guy. And the first couple of minutes in the car, we were kind of anxious for everybody. That summer, there was a story going around about a fellow who stopped to pick up some hitchhikers, and he was never seen again. All they ever found of him were two fingers in the pocket of one of the hitchhikers. In some versions of the story, they ate him. Now, I don't think that's likely, because, why would you leave two fingers? In some versions of the story, it was the other way around. He ate the hitchhikers. In any case, he was nervous about us, and we were nervous about him. But after a while, we all calmed down, and we made our way across Nevada. And he stopped just over the line in Utah. So we went back to hitchhiking. And again, we were in a gas station. And this time, a couple of guys came out and suggested that we all go around back of the station, and they would beat the shit out of us. We declined the offer. But clearly, we needed a new form of locomotion. And fortunately, one of the things we had learned in college was how to ride freight trains. So we went to the freight yard, and some fella pointed to a train and said, that'll get you to Chicago by 5 o'clock. So we climbed on board a flat car, and a little while later we pulled on out. And it was a beautiful day. It was warm. We took our shirts off. We rolled through the golden cornfields of Kansas, although they might have been the bronze wheat fields of Nebraska. I really can't tell the difference. And the hours ticked by, and 5 o'clock came and went, and it got a little cooler. So we put our shirts back on, and then it got a fair bit cooler. So we climbed into our sleeping bags, and then it got cold for real. We lay all night on the steel bed of that flat car, and we felt every bump in our ribs. And there was this mist of oil that came up from the wheels, and it covered our faces. Our faces were just black, and we froze. And we did get to Chicago at 5 o'clock, only it was 5 o'clock in the morning, not in the evening as we had imagined. Well, we went into another diner in Chicago. We got some coffee. We begged the waitress for extra rolls. They had some free rolls. We had hardly any money. When we went to pay, the waitress told us not to worry, because she said somebody had paid our bill. Okay, when I tell this story these days, I tell it mostly as a comedy of errors. I don't try to read any larger significance into it, but I suppose you could. Right? Back then, much as these days, we were a ferociously divided country. We were ready to believe the worst about each other. And it is still the case when I'm driving into Damariscotta and there's some guy tailgating me in a pickup truck, as there always seems to be. I'm imagining to myself that he's muttering under his breath, "Massholes." And then that same guy, or maybe it's his brother, passes me a slice of pizza when I get to Oysterhead too late, and they've run out of slices. And so I'm never quite sure if I and all the people like me are still back in Bodega Bay trying to get away from the guys who are itching to slit our throats, or if we're in that Chicago diner where some stranger might offer us a little bit of unexpected kindness. Thank you.
Please welcome Melissa Honeybell.
Hello, good night, hello. All right, I'm gonna start off, I'm a little nervous, so I'm gonna tell you, I go to Mexico every winter. I've been doing it for several years. The first year I went, I didn't speak any Spanish. I stay with Yucatecan people. I avoid people who speak English because I can get that here. So I'm telling you a story about one of those winters, and in the back of your mind, you can remember that many times I didn't understand what was being said to me until an hour later, or a day later, or a month later. So here we go. The first time I saw the fire eater, he was in a tiny little circus in a tiny little town in Yucatan, Mexico. He was putting flames on his arms, putting fire in his mouth. He had skin-tight clothes and a really strong, lean body. His hair was pulled tight into a bun, showing this beautiful Maya profile. He was gorgeous. After every trick, he'd say, "Hey! Balaam! Applause for Balaam!" the ringleader would shout. Balaam means jaguar in Maya, which is a perfect name for this exotic man that I wanted to capture. He was in another act that they called the giant Malaysian caterpillars. That took me a few months to figure out. Anyway, costume was an accordion tube big enough to fit one person into. And at the end, it had a screen to hide the person inside from the audience. Two guys crashing against each other under techno music and disco lights, and the ringleader was growling into the microphone. This Balaam guy was crazy, so I was really attracted to him. So I went to the circus every night, and every day I would fantasize about joining the circus, traveling all over Mexico, and having a whole litter of baby jaguars. Then one night, they were gone. They just left town. My dreams were gone. But my second chance came 3 years later. I'm in a city next to this tiny town. I don't have a place to stay. I'm in a taxi at a stoplight. I look to the left of me, and in the truck next to me is Balaam, the fire eater. Woo! The light turns green, and I make my plan. When I go to the circus that night, there's clowns, there's a new girl selling popcorn, there's no giant caterpillars, but Balaam is still eating fire, and he is still gorgeous. After the show, the performers hang out by the gate, and so do I. I stand there and I shoot lasers of lust at Balaam until he comes to talk to me. And I say to him in Spanish, like a caveman, as fast as I can, "You good, you handsome. I remember, you good. 3 years. You good, you, I want know you. You go, I go, we go, you go, park, we go park, talk." Okay. An hour later, in the park, on a bench, as we sit together, I somehow explain to him, I don't have a place to stay. But if I can stay with the circus, I will work really hard. I'll do anything. I'll do anything for him. They put me in a delivery truck in the same line that circles the tent with all the camping trailers. My truck is full of tires and junk and old tools, and in order to shut the door, you have to wind a string around a nail. But it has a mattress on the floor, so luxurious. And Balaam brings me the old caterpillar costumes, and he says if I fix them, I can be the other caterpillar with him in the circus. He tries to show me how to move in them, but all I can do is fall over as soon as I get in my tube. So I start practicing, and I start repairing the costumes. One day, I'm sitting in front of my truck sewing, and the popcorn girl comes, and she's just kind of watching me. She doesn't say anything for a while. And then she asks me where I bought my sandals and how much they cost. And then she asks the same about my shorts. And then she's peering into my truck, inspecting the rest of my stuff. And Balaam sneaks up behind her, grabs her, starts kissing her neck and her ears and her cheeks, and he's laughing, and he introduces her as Marta, his wife. Yeah. His wife. Well, of course he has a wife. Of course somebody loves him. So I say, Marta, ven. And I show her how to hold the needle and thread. And she learns, with some encouragement and time, she learns how to sew. So every day, Marta and I sit by my truck. She sews, and I practice moving like a giant caterpillar. And every night in the circus, I watch Balaam with desire and confusion. And then Balaam and Martha go back to their trailer, and I go back to my truck, and I wind the string until the next day. One night, they tell me, I'm going to dance the caterpillars with Balaam in the circus tonight in 10 minutes. I am not ready. But it's time. We each stand behind the curtain in our tubes. The techno music is blaring. The ringleader is growling into the microphone. Balaam pushes through the curtain, and he's squirming away immediately. The audience starts laughing. The women are hiding their eyes because he's doing some new moves that are, well, they're obscene. And now he's bobbing his worm head like this. He's searching for me. So I inch my way out to the center of the ring. He's thrashing around, he's stretching and flopping and gyrating. And the audience is hysterical. And then Balaam is scooting towards the curtain and he's gone. And the music stops. And I'm alone. Now, all we can hear is my feet shuffling towards the curtain. I make it through and I crash to the ground. But out of the tubes, Balaam and I are jumping and hugging and squeezing and grabbing, and we're so out of control. My whole body is buzzing. I'm so excited that I run to my truck and hide because I'm afraid of what I'll do next. Later that night, when everybody's in bed, Balaam knocks on the door and I let him in. As I wind the string to close us in tight, I look and he's already naked and he's on my mattress sprawled out. He's saying, "Apúrate, gringa, vamos. Hurry, hurry, take off your clothes. I told Martha I wouldn't be long." She knows, and she doesn't even care. And he just wants like some exotic, just like me. Well, I couldn't do it. I unwind the string. Balaam is smiling, putting on his clothes. He pats my ass on the way out and goes back to his truck. So every day, I practice moving like a caterpillar, and every night, I dance with Balaam in the circus. Until the day that the word is final about this thing they're calling COVID-19 that's spreading all over the world. And all tourists must leave Mexico immediately before the airports shut down. The circus decides not to perform, and I spend the day on the phone trying to get a flight home. It's time for me to go now. Marta is the one to walk me to the bus that takes me to the airport. The bus is coming. I take out all my Mexican cash from my wallet and I give it to Marta. I'm stepping on the bus. I turn. I see her waving, and she's crying. I stop. I take off my sandals. I toss them to Marta, and I go to the airport barefoot. Hey! So I want to tell you what I learned from my second chance. Two things. One, I have the courage to catch a jaguar. Yes, I do. But better, much better than that. I didn't even know what I was really after and what I really needed the most, but I got it, and it was Marta that gave it to me. Gracias.
And now, please welcome Jan Arabas.
On October 11th, 2022, I was teaching in an art class at a college. a drawing class. My students were all busily working away. I was standing near the door to the room, and I was enveloped by this cloud of toxic material. I knew what it was from the smell. It wasn't the first time I'd been exposed. Artists use a lot of toxic materials, and when they're used unwisely, they can really cause a lot of damage. I'd been exposed to this particular spray, it's called workable fixative, multiple times. It's sprayed on artwork so that it won't smear. If it's not used properly with a respirator and proper protection in a ventilated room, then it can cause brain damage. I'd been exposed enough to cause numb lips and fingertips. And then I had an exposure where I threw up, and the numbness didn't go away right away. I had to take a week off of work. This time, I developed a blinding headache. I had double vision. My face was numb. My hands were tingling and numb. I threw up violently into the wastebasket. I evacuated my students. I couldn't walk. I had to be helped outside into an ambulance and taken to the local emergency room. I didn't get better. Over the next couple of weeks, I couldn't walk. I did something called wall walking, where you hold onto a wall so that you won't fall over. I had electric shocks shooting up my arms and my legs. My vision was wonky, everything jiggled around. And perhaps the most frightening thing to me was I couldn't think how to do things, like making my morning cup of coffee. I would take the beans and grind them up and put them in the trash, and grab a coffee filter and put it on the beans in the trash, and take the boiling water and pour it down the sink. And I couldn't figure out what was wrong. How can I not make coffee? I also had this confusion. I remember going to the bathroom and thinking about what I might eat for breakfast. I walked into the kitchen and I dropped my dungarees and squatted on the floor. Just before I released my bladder, I realized I wasn't seated on a toilet. It was really scary. And so I saw many doctors and had many tests. And they sent me to Spaulding Rehabilitation Hospital in Boston, which is a wonderful place. When I started at Spaulding, I needed to use a rolling walker to get around. But after working for 5 months, every day, with an incredible vestibular rehabilitation therapist, I got to the point where I could balance on one leg instead of falling over. I'd fallen 16 times over that year. I landed on my elbows falling down the stairs and on my knees and hit my head, multiple trips to the ER. I also worked with an occupational therapist because I couldn't use my hands. I'm an artist. I've worked in museums, right? And I couldn't do my work any longer. But we worked on trying to get some control back. And I worked on something called gaze stabilization to control my jiggling vision, which mostly worked. I got to the point where I could start to do some drawings again. And I drew this burning, flaming skeleton. It's called a gashadukru. It's a warrior who's been unfairly killed in a battle. And that's who I was. Kashatukru. I had fought with my college administration for years, almost 30 of them, for training and protective gear for the faculty who taught art and for our students who were being exposed to things that could damage them. The administration would say, yeah, that's a good idea, we should do that, but nothing changed. I became a very angry person. I didn't want to live life as an angry person, but I had been a tenured college professor whose art was collected by people around the world. And then I was a disabled person going to rehab and on workers' comp. I was in one life, and then it was taken away from me, and I was in a different life. I had to do something, though, about the anger. So I took a meditation class. It was taught online over Zoom by a very kind teacher in Thailand. And he taught us how to do breathing mindfulness meditation, which helps you to regain control of your thoughts, and how to do loving kindness meditation, which allows you to open up your heart. I also had many talks with Teacher David, where he explained some things that I knew, but I had forgotten. Nothing's permanent. We're not permanently well, and we're not permanently ill. And we can't control other people. So, over many years, I was able to become someone who's not who I was before, but was happy with the person I'm becoming. And now I don't drink coffee anymore. I have tea in the morning. It comes from a wonderful set of farmers in China. And as I'm making the tea, I think about them, picking the tea, roasting it, packing it, the people who carry it to planes or ships, brings it to the US, to a lovely little company in Vermont. They send it to me, and I think about the UPS driver who brings it to my door. And I say the loving kindness meditation. May they be peaceful. May they be well. May they be safe. May they be free from discontentedness. Now, I don't believe that this magically happens for these people that I think about. It happens for me. The magic is something that I get to enjoy. And I wish this for you. May you be peaceful. May you be safe. May you be well. May you be free from discontentedness. Thank you.
opening the doors and letting us be on the stage. And we wanted to thank you guys for coming, because there can't be storytelling without story listening. So we appreciate you being such a receptive and wonderful audience. And then I'm hoping that maybe next year some of you will be up here and I can be out there listening to you guys tell a story. So I'd love to hear your stories. But we especially wanted to thank Mia and Michael, and we want you guys to come up here because we have some things for you. Mia and Michael shared so much generosity, support, suggestions, encouragement, warmth, positivity, a sense of community, acceptance. It made this whole process a wonderful experience for all of us, so thank you guys for
What you might not realize is this group, some of us are very nervous tonight. Some of us didn't want to do it. Some of us have lots of experience on the stage and we're still nervous and thinking, I don't know. But because these two made us feel really welcome every single time, and they have so much patience every single time and just gave up so much. They do this on their own time, I believe. So Michael's next project is called The Open House of...
History, next door at the Custom House. Yes, thank you.
The Open House of History, the Custom House. Get in there, get brave, tell a story of your own, because we all have one. And what we found, I think, is that it's not going to kill you.